Where's my wand? Expecto this movie to be better-o. I'm trying to cast a spell, guys, to make the Secrets of Dumbledore better than Crimes of Grindelwald, but did it work? I'll tell you in my review, and I cannot believe I'm actually using a Swiffer handle. It's not a wand. Who lied to me? What's going on, everyone? James here with another real review, and I'm so excited to finally get into my spoiler-free thoughts for Fantastic Beasts: The Secrets of Dumbledore, which releases in theaters April 15th. A huge thank you to Warner Brothers for giving me the chance to see it early for review. Now, the film itself is the third in a franchise, so if you haven't seen the first two, you're going to want to see those films to even understand anything in this movie. It's directed again by David Yates, who worked on the previous two Fantastic Beasts films, and it's written by both Stephen Kloves, who worked on Harry Potter in the past, and J.K. Rowling, who, well, you know. It stars Eddie Redmayne as Newt Scamander, Mads Mikkelsen as Grindelwald. It's the recasted role of Grindelwald. We'll talk about that later. And Jude Law as Albus Dumbledore. Now, before we get into my review, if it is your first time here at the channel, welcome to Real James, where I love talking about movies. So if you do too, go ahead and hit the big red button below, subscribe to the channel, and tap on that bell. Y'all hit the thumbs up button if you've been a big fan of Fantastic Beasts. And guys, let me know down below in the comments. Is this better than the second movie? Or am I crazy? Alrighty, you guys, so if you don't know much about the Secrets of Dumbledore, let's get into the film itself and what you could expect. So the story surrounds Albus Dumbledore finding out that Grindelwald is trying to seize control of the wizarding world. Now, unable to stop him alone because of this blood pact that they have, he enlists in help from Newt Scamander to lead a team of wizards, witches, and one brave muggle on a dangerous mission. Trust me, that actually does sound pretty cool, and the final product is... Alright, so you know what, let's get into my positives now, because guys, there is a lot to talk about with this film, for better or for worse, but we're going to start off on an optimistic note, and I have one thing to tell you. This is much better than the second film. The sense of wonder is finally back in this franchise, and I'm not in love with everything here, but there's enough to make the experience worthwhile. And that's what's most important for me, because at least I didn't feel like my time was wasted. In Crimes of Grindelwald, I felt like, you know, from start to finish, I was dreading the experience because it was messy, the plot was terrible, and the writing was all over the place. But here, some of that gets rectified. And even though the second movie was messy, there are still some incredible performances throughout all three of these films, but especially in this one. There are two scene stealers in The Secrets of Dumbledore, and I have both names for you. You got Jessica Williams as Professor Hicks, and you have Dan Fogler as Jacob Kowalski. Both of them are charming, fun, they're kind of strong in some scenes too. I mean, especially Jessica Williams' performance. She is so commanding of your attention, and I just love the moments between them. It's very magical, no pun intended. But let's move on to Grindelwald now, because I'm so sure everyone's asking, how the heck are they handling this role as it was recasted? Yeah, Johnny Depp is no longer a part of this franchise after all of that controversy with him and Amber Heard, but now we're focusing on Mads Mikkelsen, who is incredible in this role. I'll be honest, guys, he is the perfect fit for this character and should have been Grindelwald all along. His presence is captivating, incredibly compelling. I was just locked in every time he was on screen. Is he brutal? Of course, and there is a scene that displays some animal brutality, so if you are uncomfortable with that on screen, you might want to turn away, because there is a very graphic moment in the beginning of this film, like within the first 20 minutes, that kind of made me queasy. But I will tell you that he does an excellent job here, and I'm so glad. He really is the perfect fit for this character. And then there's Jude Law as Dumbledore, who actually gets some quality Dumbledore moments. Finally, right? It's not rocket science. When you introduce this character, especially with the scale and magnitude that he carries with him from the Harry Potter films, you're going to want him to be at least some sort of a focal point, and here he definitely is that and so much more. But Jude Law really does bring a lot of wit, charm, relatability, and I love how he is within action sequences, because he is so subtle. He doesn't need to say, I am Dumbledore and I'm gonna go and do whatever. He's just, I'm Dumbledore, I'm gonna help you out, right? He's very down to earth, and that's the thing that Jude Law can bring to this role. He makes you feel warm inside, and I love what he's able to do here, and they do give him much more screen time than in the second film, and I do think it's deserved. And I also love his chemistry with Mads Mikkelsen here. It's unmatched. There's no other duo in this film that is bringing to the table what those two brought. And of course, you have Eddie Redmayne as Newt Scamander, who does a much better job here than he did in the second film. But I will tell you, I think in Crimes of Grindelwald, he was kind of a victim of the script. They do give him much more meaningful screen time in this film, but sadly, he's less of a main character yet again, even though the movie literally opens with him. We'll talk about that more in a little bit. While he's not the main character here, at least he doesn't feel like he's the main character, he is given some cool scenes, some funny scenes, and I just think that the man, gosh, I love the quirky attitude he brings to this character. But outside of the acting, I do think that there is technically some captivating elements on display here. You have the CGI, which to me is the best it's ever been for the animals. They look beautiful. There's this creature called the, oh gosh, I'm blanking on the name. Let me go to my notes. It's called the Chillin'. Now, I'm chillin' with the chillin'. Sorry, I had to. It was in my head all night. But I love what they did with the CGI here because it looked more and more realistic than it did in the second film. But again, that's when we get those moments with the Fantastic Beasts themselves. Some of the CGI is spotty in other areas, but for the animals, it is top notch. And then there are some action scenes in the second half of this movie that made me say, this is really cool. I was so into all of the magic, the wands breaking out, they were running up on walls. I loved everything that was on display in two particular scenes. The dinner scene and the alleyway scene. When you see the movie, you'll definitely understand what I'm talking about, but I didn't even blink once. I was just so into it. And that's what made me miss some of the old Harry Potter films. Yes, it plays to that little bit of nostalgia, but man, it definitely just captured my attention. And speaking of nostalgia, when we visit Hogwarts and go inside the castle, I almost cried. Okay, I didn't really cry, but it made me think, wow, I miss this and I want to go back now and rewatch all the Harry Potter movies. It's just incredible to see how they pulled this off, and I won't say what happens, but there are some elements on display here that made me think, oh my gosh, my childhood. And of course, it wouldn't be a Fantastic Beasts movie without the score. And let me tell you, the score here by James Newton Howard is unreal. For all the faults of these movies, at least the one thing that's remained consistent is the score, and there is no exception here. Oh my goodness, James Newton Howard, the way he's able to take us on this sense of adventure and then play to our imagination, it just sort of makes the film feel more whole. And I do think it's the most consistently impressive thing about Secrets of Dumbledore. And there's one moment, especially when we visit a very special castle, that I got a little misty-eyed. I was really looking next to me and thinking, is no one else really happy and excited for this moment? But no, the score matches the intensity of every scene, and sometimes when we even get down to earth moments, the score is subtly there in the background, so it is another bit of masterful work by James Newton Howard. And before we get into the negatives, one more thing I have to highlight for this film is the humor. Sometimes it works well, sometimes it doesn't, but for the most part, I do think that they handle the comic relief element of this film pretty darn well, and it comes via Dan Fogler as Jacob Kowalski. I mean, of course, but there's one scene with Newt and his brother Theseus, who's played by what's his name, Callum Turner. Thank you, iPad. The way that they're able to riff off one another and just play to the scene itself is pretty darn fun. Alrighty, so now it's time to get right into the negatives, guys, and of course I don't want to be too down about this film because everything sounds good so far, right? Well, there are some issues that I just can't overlook. So the experience itself is pretty darn long, 2 hours and 22 minutes, and from top to bottom, there are a lot of things that I just can't shake off, and one of them being the script. The writing here is always clashing tonally. Stephen Kloves co-wrote the script alongside J.K. Rowling, and even though he is familiar with the Harry Potter universe, I have to say that there are some moments that just feel rocky. You can definitely tell who's writing which part of the script, whether it be J.K. Rowling or Stephen Kloves. Stephen Kloves manages, I think, to capture a lot of the down-to-earth, grounded moments to develop our characters, and J.K. Rowling tries to add a lot of elements here that are very familiar from the second film, so it does still feel very bloated. And the script wasn't always very sharp, with the movie never knowing whether it wanted to be a lighthearted adventure film, a drama, a comedy, or a mix of everything, which didn't work as well as it could have. It honestly made for a very uneven film and experience, and I do wish that we had maybe just one screenwriter here, Stephen Kloves, instead of trying to bring in two voices who very clearly didn't work very well with one another. And The Secrets of Dumbledore is also a tale of two halves. You have the first half that has good moments, but really is sluggish and overall just doesn't have a lot of focus from director David Yates, but then it seems like something clicked in the second half of the movie where you have consistently great scenes, the tone is always balanced, and I feel like the movie had a more focused approach, and I'm thinking to myself, where was this for the first hour and a half? And even though the movie does look much better than its predecessor, there are still some really ugly looking scenes. I really hate using that word ugly, but yeah, there are some very muddled bits of CGI in this movie. There's a very important fight scene as well in the third act that was poorly executed, and I was baffled by how it was handled. Not only was it rushed, but it looked incredibly unattractive to me. You can tell that this movie was trying a little bit too hard to be abstract sometimes, so the insane amount of CGI that was used and the way it was used never added to the film. Instead, it distracted me from what should have been a very defining moment for this franchise. Alrighty guys, so outside of those technical missteps, I do want to talk about one of the film's biggest drawbacks, and it is how it handles a couple of characters and the acting for one of them. So to start, Newt Scamander, I know we talked about Eddie Redmayne earlier. He does a good job in his performance, but it's the way that the film handles this character again. He is not a main character here. He's less of a focal point than he should be, because the film teases you in the beginning. We get that opening scene with Newt, but as the film goes on, there were stretches of time where I thought, oh, that's right, he exists, and that should not happen with a film that is literally called Fantastic Beast, and it surrounds Newt. It started with Newt. This franchise began with a character whom I can tell you now almost feels like an afterthought sometimes. This movie is very clearly setting up the rest of the franchise to be much more about Hogwarts, wizards, and Dumbledore, and less about Newt and his Fantastic Beasts. And then you have another character here who I thought was terribly managed, and that is Credence, played by Ezra Miller, or as we might know him after the second film, Albus Dumbledore. At the end of Crimes of Grindelwald, I really thought, okay, Credence is going to get much more play in this third film, but his character arc was awful. I mean, the way that they handled all of this throughout the film was so disappointing, because he really was relegated to a side character, and I mean that by the strictest of definitions, because I can't tell you that he got even a chunk of screen time in this movie. And up until the final 15 minutes, where it does feel like he has at least a little bit of on-screen presence, I was just sad with the way that they sort of shove him off to the side. This character really is a plot device more than anything, and when we do get a very emotional moment, or what should have been an emotional moment in that final act, it just was rushed and breezed on by, and I thought, you built up all of that for this? And when it comes to Ezra Miller's acting, well, he was among the worst of the bunch, unfortunately. Nothing he did was very convincing, and I did think that there were moments that he probably could have capitalized on, but just didn't. It was just a very non-impacting performance, and every time he had screen time, it made me miss every other character because he just felt very uninspired in this role. But overall, you guys, The Secrets of Dumbledore, outside of those negatives, really is a huge improvement over the second film. There's heart here, wonder, and a sense of adventure and fun, and I never thought I'd say that after the second movie. There are some good performances here, some quality standouts, and some moments that might make your heart pitter-patter, especially between Grindelwald and Albus Dumbledore. This movie is also going to cater to Harry Potter fans of old, bringing back something that was missed for a while, which is really just a lot of magic. But even through all of that, with all of the issues here, I still am not the most interested person in the world for the rest of this franchise. I left the film feeling like, okay, I know it's a step up, but I'm still not all the way in. I think the one thing that'll definitely help the next film is just sticking with one screenwriter, even if it means bringing back Stephen Kloves. So even though I can't tell you that I absolutely loved my time with this movie from top to bottom, I can tell you that at least this is a step in the right direction. So there you have it, you guys. That's my real review of Fantastic Beasts: The Secrets of Dumbledore. Again, that hits theaters April 15th. So when you see the film, guys, let me know down below in the comments exactly what you thought of the film. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Or are you kind of right there in the middle? And let me know which performance was your favorite too. And hey, if you haven't already, go ahead and hit the big red button below. Subscribe to the channel, tap on that bell, and hit the thumbs up button, because y'all, it's April, and you know what April means. Actually, April means a lot of movies and TV. I'm on a second notepad now. Yeah, I got a lot of notes. Alrighty guys, again, thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you at the next screening. And let me get my wand back. No, they gave me the Swiffer duster handle again. This is not a wand. I can't cast anything with this, but I can cast dust away. Okay, I'm gonna go now.